The pressure on both sides to get a ceasefire is rising. The real difficulty is that if you were to just announce a ceasefire right now, it would might last an hour or two. The two sides are so wound up around places like Mariupol that you really need to separate them, and for that you really need some sort of wider political agreement, and they're still very far apart on that. So it's going to be tough.
What would the political agreement be? Because we know Zelensky still wants to meet with Putin and believes that the two presidents should actually sit down and talk. What could that agreement potentially be, Marc?
Well, we only know what the two sides have said publicly. I mean, the Russians say that what they need is the demilitarization of Ukraine. So that is a negotiable term. It doesn't have a sort of scientific definition. So there's probably a way to negotiate that. Neutrality, the same. And then you get to the tougher stuff like recognition of Crimea as Russian territory, or recognition of the Donbas territories as independent. That initially was just laid out there as an ultimatum by the Russians, and the Ukrainians made it very clear they weren't going to do that. But they did say that there's a status is negotiable. So if you move away from recognition, of annexation or of independence, where Ukraine simply loses the territory, and you start talking about status, you can talk about different kinds of autonomy, and then it becomes possible to engage.
Do you potentially see, Marc, any of the sanctions piling up this week to continue to work towards some of these resolutions that you just outlined right there?
Well, it does put the Russians under pressure. The sanctions that have been imposed are much faster and stronger than anybody, including the Russians, would have expected. And it is taking a toll on the Russian economy. It will take a toll on the Russian economy. Doesn't mean that the Russians are going to stop. And we don't know just how willing President Putin would be to leave Ukraine without being able to really claim victory on some of his demands. And he's going to have to be able to claim something. And exactly what that something is, we can't be sure. But the sanctions will be one element that puts pressure on him. The Ukrainian resistance is another. So it's really a very murky, for even people involved to know exactly what the end game's going to be is very difficult.
Right, and we know Russia today was even meeting with Qatari officials too to talk about some of this latest conflict.
Right. So there's been a lot of foreign involvement. You had the Israeli prime minister who was very involved. He went to Moscow, he went to Berlin. There was a lot of phone calls. You've had President Macron from France, the German Chancellor Scholz, and now the Qataris also. So, I mean, there's even the Chinese have suggested themselves as potential mediators. So, I think there's a general understanding that the potential implications for this, if it continues, are extremely bad for everybody, including the global economy. And of course, if it was to escalate to a sort of NATO level as a conflict, that would be potentially catastrophic.